Everyone feared the prison bully, until the day she slapped the quiet woman who could break her without lifting a fist. Iron Ridge Penitentiary was a place where noise ruled, shouting, steel doors, angry footsteps. But on a cold Tuesday morning, something unusual entered the chaos: silence. A new inmate was escorted through the gates, walking with calm, almost graceful steps. Her name was Maya Reed, a quiet black woman with unreadable eyes, a posture too balanced for someone afraid, and a presence that made even experienced officers glance twice. Rumors spread quickly. She barely talks. She doesn't react to anything. She just watches. In prison, silence was mistaken for weakness, and weakness attracted predators. Cell Block D had its own tyrant, Roxy Hale, a broad-shouldered, loud-mouthed bully who thrived on intimidation. Roxy ruled with a twisted sense of pride. Every newcomer had to learn their place. When she heard about the silent new inmate, a smirk curled across her face. She thinks she's too good to talk. Fine, I'll make her talk. The block snickered. Everyone knew what that meant. The cafeteria buzzed with noise. Trays clattered, arguments sparked, and guards pretended not to see everything. Maya sat alone, quietly eating rice and vegetables, shoulders relaxed, eyes lowered. Roxy slammed her tray on Maya's table. Well, the mute queen finally shows her face. Maya didn't look up. Roxy leaned closer, voice dripping with mock sweetness. Hey, I'm talking to you. Still silence. That was the moment the bully snapped. A sharp crack echoed across the hall. Roxy's hand had struck Maya's cheek, so hard the entire block froze. Even the guards tensed. Everyone waited for the quiet woman to break down, cry, scream, something. But Maya simply raised her head, slowly. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. Roxy frowned. What are you staring at? Maya's voice, soft but razor-edged, finally spoke. You shouldn't have done that. It was the first time anyone had heard her talk. And it was enough to make the hairs on the back of every neck rise. Roxy swung again, overconfident and furious. But this time, her hands struck nothing but air. Maya moved, not fast but precise, smooth, effortless. Before Roxy could blink, Maya tapped her wrist, her shoulder, her knee. Gentle touches that somehow made the bully stumble like her limbs suddenly weighed 100 pounds. Gasps filled the room. What the? Is she a fighter? No, she's something else. A guard whispered to another, I've seen moves like that only in martial arts films. He wasn't wrong. Maya stepped back, her voice calm as water, steady enough that even the air around her seemed to hesitate as the entire cafeteria watched. I don't want trouble, but I won't be your victim. Her tone carried no anger, no fear, just certainty. Roxy, the prison's notorious bully, tried to stand straight after her slap, met a response she never saw coming, but her legs buckled beneath her weight. Her arm twitched. Every joint she relied on suddenly refused to obey, as if someone had quietly removed the instructions her body once followed. A hush crawled over the metal tables. Forks froze midair. Even the guards stopped pretending they weren't looking. And then Maya did something none of them had seen in Iron Ridge, something so foreign it felt almost unreal. She bowed slowly, respectfully, like she wasn't standing in a prison cafeteria surrounded by hardened women who survived by intimidation, but in a tranquil dojo where honor mattered more than brute force. I was a kung fu sifu for 19 years, she said quietly, her gaze never rising above calm. A teacher, not a fighter, but I can defend myself. For a split second, it felt like the room exhaled, and the sound echoed like a long-held breath finally released. A kung fu master here. Iron Ridge. The disbelief traveled through the room like electricity. No one dared speak at first, but glances shot across the crowd, fear, awe, confusion, and grudging respect mixing like storm clouds over a silent battlefield. Even inmates known for their violence straightened up slightly, instinctively recognizing the presence of someone who operated on an entirely different level. Some whispered to each other, barely audible, as if too loud a voice might trigger another display of quiet power. She didn't even hit her. Roxy dropped like someone unplugged her. Is this real? 19 years? That's longer than half of us been alive. And soon the whispers grew into a legend being born in real time. In prison, reputation is currency. Fear is armor, strength is survival. But mastery, true mastery, was something none of them had ever encountered. A story spread from table to table, cell to cell, hallway to hallway. By the time lunch was over, every inmate knew. The quiet black woman who kept to herself, the one Roxy thought she could bully without consequence, wasn't just quiet. She was calculatingly still. She wasn't weak. She was controlled. She wasn't hiding. She was simply choosing peace. And Roxy, still trembling as two inmates helped her up, understood that better than anyone. Her eyes refused to meet Maya, again, not out of fear of being hurt, but out of fear of realizing how close she had come to provoking something she never could have survived. Some swore they saw Roxy avoid the cafeteria entirely the rest of the week. Others whispered she didn't sleep that night, afraid that Maya might retaliate. But Maya didn't. She returned to her table, picked up her tray, and ate in silence, like nothing extraordinary had happened. And that only made the legend stronger. Because true strength, the kind that didn't need to flex or shout or dominate, was terrifying in a way brute force never could be. By the time word reached even the inmates in solitary confinement, the myth had already taken shape. Maya wasn't just a kung fu master, she was something more. A ghost of discipline. A storm contained within calm. A woman who could dismantle an aggressor without lifting a fist. A Sifu trapped in a place where no one expected to meet one. And suddenly, the quiet woman no one noticed before became the whispered legend everyone respected. Roxy, red-faced and trembling with humiliation, staggered back to her table. Her steps, uneven like her pride, had suddenly lost the strength that once carried her ego. Her friends, usually eager to hype her up, to fan the flames of her dominance, leaned forward, whispering frantic questions, trying to lift what remained of her shattered confidence, but she lifted a shaky hand and waved them off. For the first time since she entered Iron Ridge, the prison bully who barked orders and threw threats like punches was utterly, completely speechless. The cafeteria still buzzed with whispers, some mocking, some shocked, but most filled with disbelief. Roxy pretended not to hear, though every flicker of a glance, every stifled snicker, sliced deeper than any blade she'd ever threatened someone with. Once lunch ended, she slipped out quietly, avoiding eye contact, her swagger drained. That night, as the lights dimmed and the metallic echoes of the facility settled into their nightly rhythm, Roxy lay on her bunk staring at the ceiling, the scene replaying in her mind over and over. She had slapped a quiet woman, expecting fear, chaos, dominance, yet what she encountered was something far beyond intimidation. Control, mastery, stillness sharper than any punch she could throw, and it humbled her in a way nothing ever had. Roxy rolled over, unable to sleep, her heart heavy with a strange weight she wasn't used to, guilt. Not regret for being caught, but regret for being wrong, truly wrong. By the time midnight neared, she couldn't fight the urge any longer. Her feet moved almost on their own as she stepped into the dimly lit corridor during the brief window inmates were allowed to use restrooms. Instead of heading there, she walked toward Maya's cell, each step filled with a nervousness she never imagined she could feel. She wasn't the predator tonight. She was the student approaching something she didn't understand. A faint light from Maya's cell spilled onto the floor. She was sitting up, reading quietly, as if the chaos of earlier had never touched her. Roxy stopped outside the bars, swallowing her pride until her throat burned. "I didn't know," she muttered, the words heavy, clumsy, almost foreign. She forced herself to meet Maya's calm gaze. "That doesn't excuse my behavior, I'm sorry." The silence that followed stretched long enough for Roxy to wonder if Maya would ignore her, or worse, dismiss her. But Maya simply closed her book with gentle hands, as if teaching even now through small motions. She nodded, not triumphantly, not smugly, but with a softness Roxy didn't expect. "Strength isn't about domination," Maya said. "It's about control." Roxy felt the words sink deeper than any punishment Iron Ridge had ever thrown at her. For years, she believed strength meant being the loudest, the harshest, the one everyone feared. But standing before Maya, the woman she had insulted, provoked, and tried to humiliate, she finally saw what true strength looked like. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It didn't need an audience. It didn't need to shout to be understood. Roxy lowered her head, feeling something unfamiliar, respect. Not forced, not demanded, but earned by witnessing something real, something powerful, something she could never break. "I get it," Roxy whispered, more to herself than to Maya. I really do. Maya didn't preach, didn't scold, didn't boast about what happened. She simply nodded again, acknowledging the moment for what it was, a shift, a correction, a lesson understood. And as Roxy walked back to her cell, her footsteps carried a new weight, humility. For the first time in her life, she wasn't walking like a bully. She was walking like someone who had finally seen the difference between fear and respect, between force and discipline, between chaos and mastery, between raw strength and true strength. And she knew, deep in her bones, that the quiet woman she'd slapped had changed her more in a single moment than prison ever had. Days passed, and something subtle yet powerful spread through Iron Ridge, a shift no one could quite explain, a quiet ripple of discipline that flowed from one inmate to another like an unseen current. It began with whispers about the cafeteria incident, but it didn't stop there. Maya didn't speak much, didn't boast, didn't even mention what happened with Roxy. Instead, she returned to her routines as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Yet the others watched her differently now. The way she walked, not fast, not slow, but balanced. The way she breathed, deep, even grounded. The way she observed everything without reacting impulsively. That steadiness drew people in, especially in a place where emotions were usually weapons and stillness was rare. One morning, when two inmates nearly started a fight over a stolen piece of fruit, Maya intervened without lifting a hand. She simply stepped between them, her presence firm but non-threatening, and said, "Your anger is real. But you can control how you use it." Something in her voice, soft, steady, precise, cut through the tension like a blade dipped in calm. The two women backed away, confused by their own sudden restraint. Later that day, another inmate approached Maya hesitantly, asking, "Can you teach me how you stay so still?" Maya didn't smile, but her eyes softened. She led the woman to an empty corner of the yard and demonstrated a simple breathing exercise. Inhale 4 counts, hold 2, exhale 6. It looked too easy to matter, yet after a few minutes the woman felt her shoulders unclench for the first time in months. Word spread again. Within days, 2 more inmates quietly joined. Then 5, then 10. Some wanted self-control, some wanted inner peace, some just wanted to learn from the woman who made Iron Ridge's toughest bully collapse without violence. Sitting circles formed in the mornings, small at first, then larger, as Maya guided them through balanced drills, breathing patterns, and gentle movement sequences that resembled meditation more than martial arts. She never showed flashy kicks, never demonstrated combat, never boasted of her mastery. Instead, she taught discipline, awareness, and emotional control, the foundations of kung fu that most movies never show. Even the guards began to notice. Officer Lane, who had never believed inmates were capable of change, stood at the railing one afternoon watching 15 women move in near unison, their motions precise and mindful. "I've worked here 12 years, he whispered to another guard. "Never seen anything like this." Fights decreased. Arguments simmered down before exploding. Even the constant tension in cell block D settled into something almost resembling peace. Hardened prisoners who once lived for chaos found themselves strangely drawn to Maya's quiet authority. She never demanded respect. It simply formed around her, layer by layer, like a fortress built from silence. Roxy, once the block's tyrant, became one of Maya's most attentive watchers. She rarely spoke, but she observed every movement, every lesson. The humiliation she once felt had evolved into a deep, steady respect. She no longer threw threats at newbies. She no longer barked at people for looking at her wrong. The shift in her behavior was so dramatic that inmates joked the cafeteria slap had knocked the cruelty right out of her. But the truth was deeper. Maya had changed the way she understood power. One evening, as Maya meditated in the common area, a guard approached and cleared his throat awkwardly. "Read," he said, scratching the back of his neck. A few officers were wondering if you could. Show us that breathing technique you teach them." Maya opened her eyes, nodded once, and said, "Of course." That night 3 guards joined the session, discreetly, almost embarrassed, but they left calmer than they had arrived. Iron Ridge had never seen anything like this. A place built on fear and control began shifting toward something resembling harmony, not because of punishment or authority, but because of one woman who refused to let violence define her. Maya never raised a hand again. She never used her skills to threaten or dominate. Instead, her silence became guidance. Her calm became influence. Her presence became a lesson. And slowly, Iron Ridge transformed, not fully, not magically, but noticeably. The inmates ate in quieter lines. They spoke with fewer eruptions of rage. Even the walls felt less heavy. People started calling her something new, never to her face, but but in respectful whispers drifting through the cells at night. The Silent Sifu. The title stuck, echoing through the corridors like a myth forming in real time. And in a place where legends were usually born from violence, Maya created one from peace. Roxy, once the terror of Cell Block D, the woman whose footsteps alone used to silence entire tables, slowly became Maya's unlikely protector, an unexpected guardian shaped not by fear but by awakening. It didn't happen overnight. It happened in small, almost invisible moments, moments the other inmates noticed long before Roxy admitted them to herself. She began stopping fights before they started, stepping between women who were seconds away from exploding. She broke up petty disputes with calmer words instead of threats. She even apologized, awkwardly, reluctantly, but sincerely, to inmates she had bullied for years. Some thought she was losing her edge. Others thought Maya had cast a spell on her. But the truth was simpler. Roxy had finally learned what strength looked like when it wasn't twisted by anger. One afternoon during yard time, while Maya practiced slow, controlled forms beneath the open sky, Roxy approached her, hands shoved deep into her pockets, shoulders tense like she was rehearsing something she'd never said before. "Crazy thing," Roxy muttered, awkwardly rubbing the back of her neck. "You knocked something loose in me that day." Maya didn't pause her movement, only shifted smoothly into the next stance, a faint smile touching her lips. "Sometimes," she said, "a person has to be shaken to wake up." Roxy laughed, a real laugh, not the mocking bark she once used to intimidate. "Yeah, you did both." She sat down on one of the concrete benches, watching Maya move with the kind of quiet fascination people usually reserved for sunsets or ocean waves. There was something calming about her, something that made Roxy feel both grounded and exposed. She realized she didn't just respect Maya, she trusted her. And that was something she had never allowed herself to do with anyone. Over the next days, Roxy found herself acting differently without even thinking about it. When a younger inmate was cornered in the showers by an aggressive trio, Roxy stepped in, not as a bully reclaiming her throne, but as a shield. "Back off," she said simply. There was no threat in her voice, but something about her posture, something she had unconsciously learned from watching Maya, made the others retreat. Later, the younger inmate whispered, "Why'd you help me?" Roxy shrugged. "Because someone helped me first." She didn't say Maya's name. She didn't need to. The entire block knew. Another afternoon, during recreation, Roxy found a group mocking an older woman for moving too slowly in line. Instead of joining the laughter as she once would have, Roxy shut it down with a single stare. "Cut it out," she said. "She's been through enough." The mockers dispersed, confused by this gentler version of the woman they used to fear. Even the guards noticed. Officer Lane nudged another. "She's different now, almost like she's learning." "Or unlearning," the other guard replied. Roxy didn't hear them, but she didn't need to. Her change had already become part of the Iron Ridge rumor mill. Eventually, she found herself sitting beside Maya more often, during meals, during yard time, sometimes even during the quiet hours when the block settled into uneasy rest. She didn't talk much, and Maya didn't push her to. Silence between them felt natural, like the kind of silence that didn't have to be filled to be understood. One evening, Roxy finally broke it. "You know," she said, staring at the ground, "I used to think fear was power, make people scared and you stay on top. That was the rule." Maya finished tying her shoelaces, looked at her and replied softly, "Fear is control, not respect, and control fades." Roxy nodded, absorbing the words like a sponge. "Yeah, I'm figuring that out." Over time, her transformation became so obvious that even the inmates she once tormented began approaching her, not with caution, but with curiosity. Some asked for advice, some asked for help, some simply thanked her for stepping in when they needed it. Each moment chipped away at the old version of Roxy, revealing someone she didn't know she could be. One night, as lights dimmed and the cells hummed with quiet conversations, Roxy whispered into the darkness, almost to herself, "I don't know who I'm becoming." From the cell across the corridor, Maya answered, her voice soft but clear, "Someone better." Roxy closed her eyes, letting the words settle into her like a truth she had been chasing without realizing it. In that moment, she understood that her transformation wasn't about becoming like Maya. It was about becoming someone who could finally live without hiding behind violence. Maya had awakened something in her, a calling, a conscience, a sense of purpose she never knew she lacked. And Iron Ridge, a place built to break people, had become the unlikely ground where she began to rebuild. One quiet breath at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of strength, true strength, at a time. Maya served her sentence without incident, moving through Iron Ridge with the same quiet discipline she had carried from the day she arrived. No fights, no trouble, no aggression, only the steady, unseen influence of a woman who understood that real power needs no noise, no spectacle, no cruelty. She rose early every morning, performed her breathing routines, and walked the corridors as if the chaos of prison life rolled around her like harmless wind. And slowly Iron Ridge shifted around her, not because she demanded it, but because she embodied something stronger than fear: control, calm, and unshakable presence. Inmates who once mocked meditation now practiced it in corners of the yard. Women who once solved every dispute with fists now paused, centered themselves, and tried to handle conflict with words first. Guards began referring to her sessions as the peace hour, quietly encouraging attendance because incident reports had dropped dramatically since they started. Maya didn't take credit for it. She didn't even acknowledge the shift unless someone asked directly. She simply continued offering guidance to anyone who sought it. Her influence was not loud, it was absorbed. Not demanded, it was respected. As her release date approached, whispers began circulating through the cell blocks. Some inmates feared the calm she brought would vanish once she left. Others wondered if the fragile harmony would shatter. But Roxy, standing taller and straighter than she ever had before, assured them, "Maya didn't fix this place. She taught us to fix ourselves." On Maya's final morning inside Iron Ridge, the air felt strangely heavy, as if the prison itself understood it was about to lose a stabilizing force. The usual morning shouting was softer. The lines at breakfast were smoother. Even the guards seemed more respectful. When the time came, Maya walked toward the exit, her steps measured, her posture steady, the small duffel bag containing her few personal belongings hanging from one shoulder. The corridor to freedom was long, lined with bars and peeling paint, but she walked it without hesitation. She had entered this place silently, and now she was leaving the same way. But the prison wasn't silent, not today. When she reached the yard gates, she looked up to see dozens of inmates gathered behind the chain-link fence, faces pressed between the diamonds of metal. Some raised their hands, some nodded, some wiped their eyes though they tried to hide it. And in the center of them was Roxy, no longer the bully who ruled through fear, but a woman transformed, her arms crossed, her gaze steady and full of respect. "You changed this place," Roxy called out, her voice carrying across the yard with surprising softness. "Thank you," Maya paused, turning slightly toward her. She offered a single nod, small but powerful, a gesture that carried more meaning than words ever could. Roxy nodded back, a silent promise passing between them. The lessons would continue even in Maya's absence. With that, Maya stepped through the final gate. The outside world greeted her with open air, sunlight, and the quiet hum of distant traffic, sounds she hadn't heard in years. But she didn't rush, she didn't look back. She walked forward with the same calm integrity she had carried inside Iron Ridge, her footsteps soft but unwavering. Behind her, inmates continued watching until she disappeared beyond the outer fence. And within minutes, the story began spreading through the blocks again, retold, reshaped, repeated, carried from bunk to bunk like folklore. "Did you see how she walked out? Like nothing could shake her. She never bragged once. They say she trained for almost 20 years. She turned Roxy into a human being, I swear to God. She didn't fight people, she changed them." And finally, the line that would echo the longest, spoken in hushed awe by inmates who had witnessed her quiet strength firsthand: "Never underestimate the silent ones, especially if they know kung fu." It became a mantra, a warning, a badge of respect. New inmates arriving months later would hear bits and pieces of the legend. Some believed it, some didn't, but it didn't matter. The legacy remained, woven into the foundation of Iron Ridge like a hidden thread holding the fabric together. Even the guards occasionally referenced her during training sessions. "Control your anger," they'd say. "If inmates can do it, so can you." Beyond the prison walls, Maya continued forward with her peaceful discipline, but she left behind something more powerful than a reputation. She left a transformation, slow, quiet, and lasting. Iron Ridge would never return to what it had been before her arrival. Not fully, not entirely. Because once a place has been shown what real strength looks like, it never forgets it. And that became Maya's true legacy. Not the fight, not the slap, not the legend, but the quiet strength that reshaped a broken place without ever raising a hand to harm.